specifically in New Orleans, insurance is another big deal that's really bogging down these entry-level buyers. And between the interest and the insurance, it's getting really unaffordable, yet prices haven't really fallen. So the market hasn't been affected a ton, but a lot of buyers have dropped out. So we have a lot more inventory sitting. There's a lot more options. It's not necessarily that your house isn't good. It's not renovated well. Like most of our feedback from buyers is just, oh, we picked another one. We saw 5 houses today and yours wasn't the one we picked.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, I got a very special guest. She's one of the most up and coming real estate investors in the space today. She's flipped or wholesaled over 100 deals. I got Dominique Gunderson. Dominique, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Super glad to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. We first met about a year ago while you were in town for the Bigger Pockets conference. The team and I hosted a yacht meetup going into the Bigger Pockets conference, and you were out there on the yacht meetup with us.
Yep.
It's cool to connect again a year later. Totally. Super impressed with everything you're doing. 24 years old.
25.
You're 25 now.
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't even thinking real estate investing and passive income at 25. How long have you been doing real estate for?
So since the day I graduated high school at 17, I graduated a little bit early and just knew that I wanted to be in this space and jumped right in from day one.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it about real estate investing that made you want to get into it when you were young?
So I saw an interesting dynamic with my mom when I was in high school. She was finally able to buy her first property. I didn't grow up, like my family's not in real estate. They didn't even own real estate. But it was around 2012, 2013 where the market had crashed and everything was foreclosures, short sales. And so the prices were low enough that she could finally buy something. And she ended up buying one of those short sale type fixer-upper properties. So that was like my first look when I was like 15 years old, at buying something, being able to fix it up, how much value you could really add to an asset and do this for a living. So that's what piqued my interest and kind of set me on that path ever since.
What was the first real estate deal that you said, hey, I'm going to go do this on my own?
So that was when I started wholesaling. As soon as I graduated high school, I worked in the real estate agent world for just a little bit. I was working under somebody just to kind of learn the ropes and stuff. But once I was 19, I jumped into the wholesaling space, and that's where I was actually doing my own deals.
What would you say about because I get this question all the time. People are like, oh, I want to learn real estate investing. Should I get my real estate license? What do you tell those folks?
Where I'm at now, I say no. Just because I think that it's an important part of your journey to delegate and to not take on every single role yourself. You need an agent on your team. You need a contractor. You need all these different people. And so unless you want that to be your full-time job, I mean, it is a full-time job. So it's just if that's what you want to do or not. For me, where I'm at now, I just want to manage and oversee the whole process instead of doing the individual tasks.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think as a investor, and there's hundreds of ways to make money within real estate investing. And I always say okay, well, maybe if you're flipping, a lot of homes and you want to, maybe save on the commission, okay, then maybe that makes sense. But in terms of the information that you're going to learn, getting a real estate license, does not have a lot of correlation with what we do in the real estate investing space. I almost feel like a lot of brokers in the residential space today, they don't teach their agents much about the investment side. Yeah. Not even the tax benefits, which a lot of these real estate agents don't realize, but they do qualify for professional real estate status. Right. But a lot of them don't even know it.
Yeah, exactly. I've found going to conferences, meetups, wherever that you can get in touch with people who are actually investing and that's what they do for a career versus being an agent and just selling real estate. You're going to learn so much more than taking the test or going through those classes to get your license.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, but by qualifying for professional real estate status, that makes you a great candidate to buy rental properties. Totally. And, utilize and take advantage of a lot of the depreciation that flows through, whether you get a cost segregation study. There's a lot of ways to capitalize on that. And so I think a lot of those agents are missing out on a massive opportunity just simply because they don't know.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know?
It's not taught.
So how did you learn how to wholesale your first deal?
So I started working with a small group of people actually in the Los Angeles area. We did LA, Orange County, San Diego, so right around here, that were wholesaling. And it was almost like a real estate agent's office where you had like a couple different agents working in the office, all doing the same thing, but they were all doing their own deals, just kind of in the same space. So I had joined a small wholesale company that was like that. Had some agents in the office that were all doing the same thing, like getting wholesale deals. So it was a great chance to really learn the process because there were so many people around me kind of doing the same thing. But I was still so motivated because if they did a deal, that doesn't mean I did a deal. We're all still doing our own deals. So that's how I really just like learned, had people around me to constantly figure out what to do, what's working, what's not working. Got to JV on some deals and stuff. So that was a really cool experience for me to kind of get into wholesaling in a little bit of an easier way than just jumping out on my own and starting having no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, man, it's all about who you surround yourself with. And that was my next question for you. I'm like, because at your age, I wasn't thinking real estate investing. I wasn't hanging out with people that were doing this. So I'm like, how did she get in at such a young age? But you were hanging out probably with people that are a little bit older than you, I imagine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was always the youngest.
Yeah. And so these folks in the office, when you mentioned JV, so
Yeah.
joint ventured.
Yes.
And was that with a buy and hold deal, or was that you're talking JVing on a wholesale deal?
JVing on a wholesale
Gotcha.
deal.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So pretty much just if somebody has a property, you have a buyer or vice versa, we're kind of working together to put the deal together instead of everything falling on you.
That makes sense. I like that. So what typically when you JV a wholesale deal, like give me an example of why you would go that path. Is it because like maybe one person finds the deal and the other person does the rest of the work?
Exactly. Yeah. Because there were a lot of deals, like I built my buyers list really strong from the start. And I had buyers that would buy like, I'm looking for a property in this zip code that I can put 2 units on the lot, whatever it is, like very specific criteria. I'd meet these people and then I might not have that specific deal, but if I come across it, if I find it and somebody else doesn't know that specific buyer that's looking for that thing and is ready to jump on a deal, I know that. And so you kind of bring those pieces together and then you can share in the fee and, get more deals done.
Yeah. So fast forward to today, tell us a little bit about what you're working on currently. What do you have in the pipeline right now?
Sure. So today my main focus, pretty much all I do is fix and flip. A little bit of buy and hold as well. I kind of keep my best deals as rentals, but all like single family, fix and flip renovations in the New Orleans market. So I change markets completely. I do long distance fix and flips. So I live in Colorado full time while investing full time in New Orleans and just manage these projects remote.
So why did you switch markets from the initial market, which is what again?
Los Angeles, we'll call it. Yeah.
Which is like a really expensive hot market with a lot of bureaucracy and red tape.
Yes.
And then now you're in New Orleans.
Yes.
Which is, I don't know the political climate in New Orleans. Is it more liberal or conservative?
Conservative.
Okay. And I know from a price point standpoint, it's a much lower price point than what you see out in LA. Why the transition to New Orleans and why New Orleans?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I was 21 when I was ready to stop wholesaling and start flipping and start my own company. And LA just seemed untouchable for me. It was a place I had a lot of connections. I knew a lot of investors, buyers. That's where I'd been doing deals. But for me to take on my own project, to go raise the capital or use my own capital, it just seemed so difficult. And like the bar was so high. So I started looking into where could I find another market where I still have an in, I still could, get an upper hand on meeting people and building a team. And my dad lives out in New Orleans. So that was a super easy market for me to go visit, for me to start just networking, like knowing people that maybe he knows. And it was just kind of like the one inexpensive, not as touched, not everybody there is a flipper investor, like LA. That I started looking at, and it just kind of stuck from there.
What, in terms of like the fundamentals, because whenever I go into a new market, I'm like, okay, well, what are the fundamentals in terms of supply demand?
Hmm.
What does the population growth look like? What does the employment growth look like?
Yeah.
What about the employment sectors? Is it diverse or is it like a big, military presence?
Hmm.
What about the New Orleans market in terms of the fundamentals do you like?
Yeah, so I don't invest specifically in the city of New Orleans. The city is a bit more liberal, lots of tight laws. The city of New Orleans is very difficult to work with. I invest in the outskirts, just right outside, which is more your suburb type single family neighborhoods, blue collar workers, entry level price points, single family homes. So I liked that because I knew I wanted to fix and flip single family homes. So, the city is filled with apartment buildings and condos and stuff like that. The outskirts is more what I was looking for. A lot of the streets are tracks, so they're built the same. If you buy one and you buy one a couple blocks over, you already know the layout, you know the house, you know what you're going to run into. So that has been something that I've liked a lot as I've done more volume in the same zip codes, in the same neighborhoods. Um, the employment and job stuff, it's not a city that's growing a ton. Historically, it hasn't, but it has very strong roots. So if you talk to people that are from there, they will stay there for the most part. They'll raise their family 3 generations there. And so you see just a lot of people that are coming up, like they just got married, they're looking for their first home, and they're going to stay where they grew up, in these outskirt neighborhoods. So that's a
Yeah.
lot of who our target buyers are, the first time home buyers just looking for their first 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, nicely renovated home.
Yeah, and I can imagine the tourism sector is pretty big, at least in the city of New Orleans.
Yep.
I was telling you before we started recording, one of my good friends from college, I was actually on a call with him yesterday. Hadn't chatted in a while, but we were catching up, and he's a travel PT, does physical therapy, but he travels around to different cities in the country.
Sure.
And he's in New Orleans right now, and he's like, dude, my girlfriend and I, we love it here. We're
Yeah.
going to extend this contract. And he's like, dude, you got to come out and visit.
Yeah.
And I want to. I'm
Yeah,
like, dude,
yeah.
I've never been, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely got to go check it out. So what is your search criteria right now when you're buying these deals in New Orleans? I know you said single family home, but what price point? And then like, tell me some of like the things you're looking for.
Yeah. So historically, I've bought very entry level. So 250 and under on the resale side, which means I'm buying like 100K and under typically on our purchase side. So it's been all across the board as far as cosmetic flips to fully down to the studs, redoing everything, spending more on the reno than the purchase type of deal. So, yeah, big variety as far as that goes. I'm not too picky on what I buy, just as long as the return is good and the margins are there. And it's in a neighborhood that I know will sell and there's good buyers, first time home buyers. Just this year though, I've started looking a little bit outside of that price point, and I'm doing a couple of higher end stuff as well that have exits in the 300 to 500K range. So those neighborhoods exist as well.
Yeah. How much do you like in terms of like percentage to like all in, like your all in cost basis, percentage to ARV? Where do you like to kind of be under?
To be honest, I haven't ever really analyzed deals like that.
Yeah.
I'll usually look at it more on an ROI standpoint.
Okay.
So I typically look at what we're going to be total into the deal for purchase and renovation. And my target is, if the market is super hot and deals are hard to find, I want to still make at least 15% ROI. After everybody's paid off, everything's done. If the market isn't as strong and I need to factor in more for contingencies, sitting longer days on market, stuff like that, I'll usually bump my ROI to 20.
Okay. And how are you guys funding these projects? Are you solely just bringing in investor capital, or are you guys pairing it with hard money lending? What does the capital stack look like?
For the most part, it's private loans just from individuals that have worked with me and want to roll their money into the next deal. And then as we start to scale, obviously we've brought more in over time. But yeah, it's usually one lender per deal. They'll bring in the capital. They'll get a set interest return on their money. And then we'll execute the deal, manage the flip. Like, they're completely passive and we do all the active work and then just pay out their return.
Typically, how long does it take for one of your investors to get their money back?
It's usually under 6 months.
So it's quick. So it's a quick turn.
Yeah.
Because I have some friends that are in the space, not in New Orleans, but they're tweaking some of their approach to flipping. They're maybe doing some more wholesaling, or they're being a little bit more selective with the deals they're buying. or they want to make sure that their all-in cost basis to a ARV perspective is a little bit lower ratio,
Right.
just because of the interest rate environment that we're in and some of the volatility that we're seeing. Are you changing your approach today at all based on what's going on in the marketplace? If you are a busy professional and don't have time to invest in real estate, but still want to participate in the passive income and tax benefits, my team, Summers Capital, is buying a lot of boutique hotels right now. We source the deals, we renovate the properties, and we even do all the day-to-day management, making it truly hands-off for our investors. If you want to learn more to see if we can help you, go to summerscapital.com/invest to book a call with our team. Again, that's summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show.
Yeah, I haven't changed a ton based on the interest rates. However, specifically in New Orleans, insurance is another big deal that's really bogging down these entry-level buyers. And between the interest and the insurance, it's getting really unaffordable, yet prices haven't really fallen. So the market hasn't been affected a ton, but a lot of buyers have dropped out. So we have a lot more inventory sitting. There's a lot more options. It's not necessarily that your house isn't good, it's not renovated well. Like most of our feedback from buyers is just, oh, we picked another one. We saw 5 houses today and yours wasn't the one we picked, And so a couple of years ago, that wasn't the problem at all. There was no houses and there was way too many buyers. So your product has to be top notch. So I would say it's narrowing in more on the design and the little details and the quality of work, and making sure that when those buyers walk into 5 houses, they're going to pick yours because it's priced the best for the value that you're offering. It's that and trying out other price points. That's been my thing this year, is just recognizing that in this lower price point, these are the people that are really affected by this, and the houses are becoming unaffordable and the buyers are dropping out, or they're stepping down a price point tier, which in this price point, there's nowhere down to go. It's, oh, I guess we're going to rent for another year, but if you're looking at buyers in the $300K to $500K price point, even if they step down a tier, even if a couple drop out, like you're dealing with a different type of individual. So I'm starting to do some inventory in those price points as well, just to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at the different price points within a specific market.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys seeing in New Orleans like a decrease in the median sale price from this year right now versus 18 months ago?
I would not say, and this is the market, the part of the market that I know best is the 250 and under, because that's where I've done most of my deals in the last 18 months. I have not seen a decrease. I'm not listing my properties lower. I'm not really factoring in for a lower ARV because I think the market is slowly coming down. I haven't done that yet. I haven't seen it happen yet.
Yeah. Are you seeing an increase in days on market though on the resale side? You are.
That's where we're seeing our
Give me an
difference.
example. Like 18 months ago, it was how many days versus it today?
So right now it's a hit or a miss. 18 months ago, I never had anything that sat longer than like 7 days. Everything was flying off the shelf.
Multiple offers.
And
Wow.
when I say multiple, I mean like 8, like a lot of offers, Now we get maybe 1, maybe 2 offers. And this is on a good deal. Like 50% of the deals go really well. They'll still go in under 7 days. And then the other half of the deals, it's like, maybe it wasn't on the best street. Maybe it wasn't priced perfectly. Those are sitting for like 60 plus days sometimes right now. So big, big difference.
Wow. And so with those that are sitting a little bit longer, what are you typically having to do to offload them? You said that you're not reducing the price. It's just going to take longer to move it, and that's it.
So we have reduced the price on some of the listings that are taking longer, but I would say overall, it's still not showing lower pricing in the market. Like there's a couple I have right now that have been sitting that were priced actually pretty high when I listed it. That's what my agent recommended. Like, actually the market's ticked up a little bit. Let's price aggressively. And it didn't work. So now we're dropping back down to basically what I thought we would sell it for, as of the pricing 18 months ago, or how it's kind of been.
Yeah.
So we have dropped the prices. Some of them, it's like, hey, let's bring real furniture in here and stage this place instead of just digitally staging it. Like, how can we make this look more appealing when somebody walks in the front door? So just different things to, really attract buyers to your listing.
Yeah. And it's interesting to kind of see where we navigate after this high interest rate environment kind of comes back to some sort of equilibrium. I feel like a lot of the markets around the country with good fundamentals from a supply demand standpoint are still very solid. And I think if anything, this high interest rate environment has, give reason for a lot of new builds to kind of slow down because of the rate environment. And so I think as this shakes out, I think we're going to see the demand faucet turn back on.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to kind of see where it goes. But it sounds like New Orleans is one of those markets as well, to where it's like, hey, this rate environment is causing a little bit of a slowdown. But if rates go back down to 3%, it's going to be a different story.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, even where rates are, it's like I said, it's a hit or a miss. I still have like at least 50% of the deals I put out are selling, going pending in 3 days. And first weekend on market, there's still buyers. It's just whether you have like that perfect house that's on the best part of the block, the best street that everybody wants, and it's priced perfectly on an oversized lot, whatever it is, that's like those factors that are really making the house stand out versus just maybe this one will sell, maybe we can push the price, maybe not.
So I'm curious because you're in Colorado and you're investing in New Orleans. So it's forced you to create systems and processes to manage all of your projects and source deals and sell these deals remotely.
Yeah.
What are some of the bigger challenges that someone should be aware of going into an out-of-state market to set up their team?
Yeah, I would say you got to be really patient with yourself with building the team, because everything you do is going to rise and fall on your team on the ground. You can put in as much oversight, management, hours per week as you want, but if your team isn't strong, loyal, doing the tasks that you're giving them and showing up on time and all these things, whatever you do, your business is not going to be a success. It's not about you. It's about your team. It's about your leadership. Who are you empowering? Who's in the right role for what they're gifted to do? And so it's been a lot of learning for me of just, I'm very hands-on. I want to do everything. I want to have oversight over everything. And so to flip houses where like, I don't even necessarily walk in the door until the house is done. I'm just seeing it over FaceTime and trusting my team to do all the things and do it right, and just kind of have a backseat oversight has been a big learning lesson for me, but really cool to see how you can take a flipping business that's typically very hands-on, very time-consuming, very active approach to investing and watch it become so much more passive.
Yeah. And traditionally, like you're right, like a flipping business is very hyper local. And so to see you do it successfully at scale from halfway across the country is pretty impressive. What would you say is the most important team member in your business?
So I think there's three people that I lean on almost daily and talk to almost daily for a flip. And it's my real estate agent who handles all of our not so much acquisitions, but dispositions, all sales, all contracts, escrows, paperwork, everything. I don't really play any active role in that. I just communicate with her. Contractors, super important. For me, I've found that it's kind of really hard to manage a crew of subs and contractors from a long distance. So you need like one go-to person who you're communicating with, and they're overseeing everybody else, and they're overseeing materials and timeline and budget and all this stuff. So having your one go-to like GC has been really big. And then the third person for me has just been someone who's like, you can call him a project manager, a boots on the ground, like assistant, whatever, but literally someone who is just there to show up and do anything that needs a task related item done on the ground. It could be picking up materials, picking up or dropping off keys, setting up a lockbox, like meeting a delivery guy, turning on utilities, anything that needs to be done on the ground. You've got to have somebody there to do it if you're not going to do it. Yeah,
that makes sense. And then what roles are you primarily focused on? Is it finding the deals and bringing the money in?
Yeah. So I do a lot heavy on the acquisitions. Not so much that we do a lot of like marketing or anything, but just building those relationships with agents, wholesalers, anyone who's going to send me deals and keep deal flow coming in. So networking is honestly like a big thing for me. And then yes, the capital raising is also really big. But just overall management, like I have oversight over all these deals. I know what stage, of the construction we're in. Even if I'm
Hmm.
not there to see it, I know what's going on the job site every day. I know how far out we are from being done with the project, or how many offers we've had, or showings if we're in
Right.
the listing stage. So
Yeah, I always feel like, to build any real estate portfolio or to have any sort of real estate business, you need two things. You need the deals and you need the money.
yeah,
And I feel like all the other components are important, but you can delegate a lot of those out.
sure.
So it sounds like you focus on the two higher producing activities, which is finding the deals and bringing the money in.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You mentioned your contractor does a lot of the renovation, of course, and picking out the materials.
Hmm.
Does your contractor do a lot of the design element in terms of like which materials are going to pair best with other materials, or is there someone else like a designer that helps out with that?
So it's different based on the project. I
Okay.
have a couple of different teams that are like good at different things. And so I try to keep them in their lane. But someone who does my lower end, super cosmetic, like paint, flooring, drywall type of stuff,
Hmm.
that contractor doesn't really play a role in design. He doesn't, he doesn't have that experience to do higher end stuff and like play with materials and stuff. So he'll just tell me what we need, how many square footage of flooring, whatever. I'll pick it out and have my project manager bring it to the job site so he can just, get things knocked out once the materials are there.
Hmm.
Whereas the other team that I use for more full on renovations, higher end stuff, like that's his sweet spot. That's what he's done. He does these higher end stuff. So he has a lot of designs that he's put in before or seen or always wanted to try or whatever. And so we'll usually brainstorm more together as far as ideas, because he's bringing in, great ideas of what he's done before, or, things could fit this space.
When you guys find a good design element or pairing that goes well together, and you find some good materials that work
Mhm.
for you on some past projects, do you guys tend to stick with the same design elements and materials for future projects just to kind of cut down on the simplicity, or are you guys always looking for like different avenues to get better?
For the most part, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of systematizing,
Hmm.
especially in that lower price point when the buyers aren't looking for like that wow factor. They're just looking for a nicely renovated, affordable house. And so when you can deliver that and you can deliver it to like more people, more houses quicker because you have these systems in place, that's kind of what I've started focusing on. So, yeah, if you look at our like 250 and under houses, they look very much the same type of floors, cabinets, counters, ceiling fans, lighting, all that type of stuff is, I mean, there's slight differences. Maybe we use a different tile or different color, different cabinet color, whatever, but a lot of the same stuff.
What are some interior upgrades that you guys like to do that maybe are the most cost effective, but move a bigger lever, if you would? For example, some things cost a lot of money and aren't going to make much of an aesthetic improvement.
Sure.
I think like the extreme example would be like replacing an HVAC unit. It
Right.
costs a lot of money. And from the experience of a potential buyer or a guest going into the property, they're not going to notice that aesthetically. But some things don't cost much money, like putting in new lighting fixtures or hardware. But from a aesthetic standpoint, it makes a big deal. So
Yeah.
what are some like tips and tricks from interior perspective that you like to utilize?
Yeah. So honestly, a lot of the buyers, especially in that lower price point, those non aesthetic aspects are actually very important to them. So although we do try to do some things, and I'll give a few examples, but a lot of my flips are like, does it have a new roof? Does it have a new HVAC system, new plumbing, new water heater? Like those are actually the first questions that people ask, because they know when they get into this house, if that breaks or goes out, they probably can't afford to fix it, or they at least need a home warranty program or something to help them out. So those are actually a lot of the things that we focus on and actually try to highlight in the projects. But a lot of the things as far as like aesthetics go that I like to try to do is figuring out how to look at a house that's like 2 to 3 price tiers above mine. What are the designs that they're putting in? What are those, you know, design elements look like and how can I replicate them on my budget. So like one good example is if we can do, instead of a white or gray shaker cabinet that every house has, how can we do like a blue or a black or a green or some of these fun colors that the $1 million houses have, where they're trendy in their design. And same with the tile. Like the tile is not just white subway. It's trendy. It's fun colors, So figuring out how we can maybe paint the cabinets those fun colors instead of spending the extra $5,000 to get the blue cabinets because they are way more expensive. So little things like that, where we can maybe do like a marble looking tile instead of actual marble, to still get that effect that the $1 million or the $500,000 house has, but on a budget.
What do you guys typically do with the flooring on the lower end stuff? Do you guys just do the wet areas or do you go LVP throughout? Do you use LVP? Hey guys, real quick, the only way this podcast grows is if you guys share it and review the show. So if you do find value, if you could take 2 seconds and drop a 5-star on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, it would mean the world to me. But more importantly, it will help us reach new audiences and help more people build wealth through real estate investing.
Sometimes we use LVP. Sometimes we just use a cheaper laminate product, like a Home Depot product. But we always do it throughout.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you typically spending for flooring on a per square foot basis?
Usually anywhere from $1 to $1.50 a square foot.
Okay. And what about labor included, like installed? How much are you typically all in for flooring on a per foot?
So the flooring is usually for 1,000 square foot house, let's just say probably about $5,000.
Okay. So about $5 installed all in. Okay. Yeah. That's not bad.
Yeah.
And then the cheaper laminate stuff still looks like nice LVP.
Right.
It's just a little bit cheaper price point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it. And are you guys doing the wet areas only, or are you typically doing the whole place?
Typically the whole place.
I like that.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll do like the bathrooms, the kitchen or something with tile. But yeah, we don't do carpet or anything. It's through the bedrooms and everything.
What about like appliances for the lower end stuff? Are you guys doing like black, white, or are you guys doing stainless?
We're doing stainless. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, just not the best stove in the store. It's like the entry level stainless appliance that still looks nice. We can still provide a stove, maybe a microwave, dishwasher. We just don't put the fridge.
Okay. Got it. I know some states it's like the fridge is like here in California, when you go and rent like an apartment,
right,
comes with a fridge. But I believe some states, like when I was living out in Oklahoma, this is like a long time ago. But I'm pretty sure like out there, like you rent a place, like a fridge is not standard. You got to go get your own fridge.
Yeah. Washer, dryer, same type of idea. Yeah.
But what about Louisiana?
For rentals, it always pretty much comes with a fridge. Sometimes washer, dryer. But again, like especially in the lower price point, it's pretty hard to expect some of these buyers, but especially renters, to be providing those appliances. So it's more common there than say your $500K plus price point.
What are some exterior improvements that maybe make a nice difference from an aesthetic standpoint, from a curb appeal standpoint, but don't cost a lot of money?
Yeah, I think shutters is a great way to go. We do those a lot, especially if it's not just the shutters, it might be like the trim as well around the house to do it in a contrasting color. So if your house is like dark, make white shutters or white trim or vice versa, just so that it really kind of pops out.
How much do shutters cost?
Shutters are cheap. We usually just get them at like Home Depot or Lowe's. You could probably do a couple sets of windows for $200-$300. So really inexpensive. You could probably get like your 3 or 4 front windows done. So we usually just do it in the front just for the curb appeal. Some landscaping in the front, a little planter box or whatever. I like to do a pop of color on the front door. So I'll usually do like a red or a green or a blue or something bright for the door. Nice address numbers to really make those pop as well. Again, if it's like a white house, we're going to do those in dark, black, just so they really stand out.
Do you guys do any sort of lighting as well?
Yeah, there's usually a little bit of lighting on, like if there's a front porch, which is actually really common in Louisiana. People love hanging out on the front porch. So if you have like a nice porch with a railing or lights or even just like a nice front yard, that's always a big selling feature down there.
Do you guys ever do siding or any like picket fence?
Yeah, we'll do fencing sometimes, at least in the front, like a gate or something where people could like lock, because a lot of people have boats or like bigger, vehicles that they want to store in the backyard. So that's been a request quite a bit, is to have like rear yard access. If you have a driveway that goes all the way through, make sure you have like a gate, not a fence, because people are going to, take their vehicles or boats into the yard.
Yeah, I love that. So how do you determine as a flipper, how do you determine which deals you're going to refi and keep versus resell?
Yeah, great question. So I've only been keeping them more lately as the team is built, the systems are running, and now I feel like I'm at the place where I can start holding and building a rental portfolio instead of just growing and learning and flipping to like do the volume and learn the systems. So I've only just started holding really. This year has been the year where I've started to focus on it. And so it's just been a cash flow thing for me. It's looking at which deals can I pull all or almost all of the money back out on a refinance versus a flip, and it still cash flows. For me, if it doesn't cash flow or it cash flows like $50, I'm not going to keep it. And that's hard right now with the rate and insurance environment. It's very hard to find a deal that cash flows at least like 100 to 200 bucks a door.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree with you there. I feel like, with the rate environment, with the high interest rates, the long-term model especially is going to be tough to cash flow.
yeah,
And so if you can sell for a profit, it's like, well, you might as well take that profit, because if you're only cash flowing $100 a month, which
Right.
is $1,200 a year,
right.
even if you don't have any expensive repairs and you actually get to cash flow $1,200 a year, it's like, well, how many years of that is it going to take of $1,200 a year cash flow to make the $20,000 you could have on the resale?
Exactly.
It's a lot. That's a lot of years right there.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
And that's not to account for, a roof that needs to be replaced, or
Yeah.
your water heater goes out, and it's like, okay, well, there goes your cash flow for like another 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I usually look at that too. If I'm going to keep something and pull like all or almost all of the cash back out, I still have anywhere from usually about 40 to 50K in the deal, in equity, just based on like what the ARV,
LTV
the
was too.
appraisal. Yeah, exactly. So that's another thing you look at is like, yeah, if you're making $1,200 a year, not including repairs or anything that goes wrong, and you've got 40K sitting there, I mean, that's not
Mhm.
a great return, on your money. You could take that, sell it, and put it into something better, which is almost more the model that I'm like looking at a little bit. I did that earlier this year, just sold something, took the profit, put it in as a down payment, and bought a duplex that I'm having as a rental. So that cash flow is much better because I've got the equity in it. I'm not so concerned about pulling all the capital out.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some people are asking themselves right now, like, well, what if you operate as a short-term rental or a mid-term rental? You can bring in more revenue, but it's like, okay, well, now you got to go front even more cash to come up with the
Right.
furnishings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not cheap. And so then now you're setting yourself back even further in terms of like, okay, well, how many more months of this additional cash flow is it going to take
Sure.
to just get back to your break-even point? And
Right.
so, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think often the best way is to recycle that money and put it into more projects, because you look at the velocity of money and these projects you're doing, or even the stuff that we're doing on the commercial side, is like the velocity of money is greatest when we're buying at a discount and we're improving the value of the property, whether it's through renovations or through better operations and marketing, or a combination of the three.
Yep.
That's when we're creating the most velocity or the highest velocity of money. And then when you refi and keep, it's like, yes, over time, inflation still does its thing.
Sure.
Property values still go up over time, but it's not going to go up at the same rate it does during the time that you're really improving the property and,
Right.
and implementing your value add strategy. And so that's something that, a lot of people don't consider, but
Mhm.
a lot of value add operators, yourself included, understand that. And that's why often it makes sense to just take your profit, redeploy it into another value add project.
Right. Yeah. And as the more you do, the more experience, the more people you meet, and you're getting different types of deals sent to you. You feel more comfortable with your team, with your capital raising ability, all the things. You take those small profits, they start adding up, and then you're deploying it into something bigger. You're moving on to the next bigger, better thing. You're doing apartments instead of single families, that type of thing. So I think kind of moving in that trajectory, like you're saying, is very interesting to me, as something, I'm still really young and just kind of getting going a little bit in this, I feel like, as far as how far my career is going to take me. So that's the type of stuff that excites me a lot about redeploying the capital into potentially bigger projects, doing greater things where the value add opportunity is even bigger than a single family fix and flip.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're getting into a little bit higher in price point. What outside of doing a little bit higher price point excites you the most as you kind of look at your real estate investing journey moving forward?
I think, to be honest, I'm pretty excited to get a little bit more passive and start investing in more rentals, whether that be single family stuff that I've flipped and kept, or like specifically investing into bigger deals, multifamily apartments. But I am also potentially interested in like, I'm not like super ready to expand or leave Louisiana by any means, or New Orleans, but I am interested in looking into other markets, potentially seeing where insurance is lower, the hurricane risk is less,
Hmm.
and just seeing what other markets, even just nearby, an hour away. I know so many investors that I've met in the South that, don't build their rental portfolio in New Orleans, but they build it an hour outside, and it's a completely different market. So I'd love to, in the next couple of years, like start looking into some of that stuff and just seeing other markets and where cash flow is potentially better to build a portfolio.
Yeah, the insurance thing is crazy right now. Obviously with I would say the last couple of years, just with inflation and everything, generally speaking, insurance rates have gone up. But
Yeah.
recently we're seeing a huge tick up, especially in the markets that have a lot of outside factors that can, natural disaster, hurricane,
Sure.
areas that are in flood zones. That's massive right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And it will kill a deal. I mean,
Totally.
there's folks in our hotel mastermind that, are sourcing deals in different markets, and the ones that are, have looked at deals that are in areas of Florida that are in flood zones.
Right.
We always get these deals sized up with insurance broker.
Sure.
And some of these quotes, I mean, we're talking a 10 unit, a 12 unit boutique hotel have come back at like $80,000 to $100,000 an annual premium.
Yeah.
Because they're in a flood zone.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, yeah, like these deals, it's like, if it's in a flood zone, like that's a hard no for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I have definitely bought deals in flood zones. They do sell as flips.
Yeah.
People will still buy them, but it's not something I keep. I've
Mhm.
never kept one.
But on the flip side, if you look at an area like, let's say Phoenix, Scottsdale,
Sure.
Arizona, Arizona has one of the lowest insurance rates in the country because they don't have a lot of natural disaster there. There's
Right.
not fires, there's not earthquakes, there's not flooding. You
Right.
don't have tornadoes. And then even like from a roof standpoint, because there's not a lot of snow and like weather, the roofs out there, a lot of the major components of the properties typically tend to last much longer than these
Yeah.
other markets. And so because of that, the insurance rates are cheapest out there. But it's interesting to see the disparity and the delta between
Yeah.
bad weather markets and good weather markets in terms of the insurance premiums.
Yeah. I'm curious because I know you have a place in Arizona. You probably have familiarity with other deals out there. A property that's, I don't know, 5, 6, 700,000. I don't know how much they are, but your standard property out there, what would you say would be like the insurance premium per year?
So I can tell you what we pay. In this property, we bought it for 2.4. We put
Okay.
about 800,000 into a full renovation, and it appraised at 4.89.
Okay.
So a $4.89 million property, we pay about $1,200 a month. So on an annual
Okay.
basis, you're looking at about $15,000 a month in insurance. I'm sorry, $15,000 a year.
A year. Yep.
In insurance, $1,200 a month, but that's for a $4.89 million
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
And so if you look at that, it's a lot cheaper than what we're seeing in some of these areas.
Yeah.
Like that hotel I was telling you about, I believe it was a 10 unit boutique hotel in Fort Lauderdale that happened to be in a flood zone, and like a seawall needed to be built in order
Yeah.
to protect it from being flooded.
Yeah.
And the insurance quote came back at 80 to 100,000 for that.
Yeah.
It's insane,
That's
right?
crazy. Yeah. So, I mean, just to give you like a comparison, even you're paying $15,000 for a $4 million property. I have buyers that are getting quotes right now, even if it's not in a flood zone, but for sure, if it's in a flood zone, for $180,000, $200,000 house, and they're paying $5,000 to $6,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're talking a third of your 4 point whatever $1 million policy for less than $200,000 house. So it's just crazy. It's breaking people's bank for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. We use CoStar for like all of our data on the commercial real estate side. But CoStar, if you pull up any property in the country, it will tell you it's like risk of like flooding within
Yeah,
within each year. But it will also tell you it's risk of flooding within like a 30-year period.
sure.
Some of these properties in these flood zones are like an 85% chance of flooding
Yeah,
within like a certain period. And it's like,
yeah,
well, if you buy this property, you know at some point you're going to have to deal with it.
right.
And, it's one thing if I'm like, if I'm doing a side deal and it's just my own money and I want to, take a risk, cool.
Sure.
But I'm not gonna bring investor capital into a project that has that high of a chance of flooding.
Right.
You're asking for it. And
Yeah.
I want to be able to sleep good at night.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
So I don't know. I think insurance is one of those things. We're seeing obviously the interest rate environment is up. We're seeing the cost of a bunch of different things go up. And they're not really addressing what needs to be done. And I think they need to be building more housing in a lot of these markets,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said earlier, it's the interest rates that's actually stopping that. Builders are getting scared and the market's turning down, in a lot of areas throughout the country where builders are feeling like, man, 2 years out, 18 months out, like, what's this going to be like? Can we even unload this thing? And we're just actually seeing a little bit of a halt in that department in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see where the interest rates kind of equilibrate.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your content. So I follow you on Instagram and I encourage all listeners to go and follow at Dom_flips_NOLA. But you're putting out content. What's it like putting out content as a younger real estate investor? What's your experience been like?
Yeah, it's been fun, honestly. Like doing content was never something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to have a page, it takes a little bit of effort for me. Like it's not super natural to just, I'd love to go film videos all day, but I've seen it grow my business so much. Just getting to meet different people that have like found me there or asked me to do something, a podcast, an opportunity, a speaking opportunity, whatever it might be. So that's been like just a cool and fun thing to add to my resume and what I've done. But I actually use it as a huge piece of my business to raise capital and get deals. I've met so many wholesalers or agents or people that have just like reached out to me from social media with a specific deal or just, hey, can I, get on the phone with you because I have stuff coming all the time. What's your criteria? I bought a ton of deals from social media. And I've raised like almost all the capital that I've raised from social media or people who have heard me on an interview or podcast or something.
Wow. So you've actually bought deals through social media as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, man, the benefits of putting out content as a real estate investor, because most investors are not, they're busy buying deals, but they're like,
Right.
oh, I'm not going to do the content, or they just don't feel comfortable with it. But I'm like, man, there's so many like hidden benefits about being a real estate investor and putting out the content. It's like, you're going
Right.
to have access to better deals. You're going to have opportunities brought to you because people want to partner with you.
Right.
You're going to have the ability to hire better team members, attract
Sure.
better team members. And then, that's not even just to mention the capital raising that you're alluding to,
Yeah.
which is massive. And then your ability to connect with other folks. I mean, you and I are connecting through social media, essentially.
Yeah.
We did meet on the yacht meetup, but
Yeah.
it's a great way to stay connected and also help others.
Totally. No, yeah. To all those points and just so much more that's come from it. It's been a really great opportunity. And I don't, have that big of a page or anything. It's not like something that I, do professionally or have a professional team hired to produce content. But just seeing the little bits that have already come from it motivates me to do it more. So
Yeah. And you hosted a live event recently out in New Orleans. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we started doing them just this year, actually. So we did one in April and then we're doing another one in October. But basically just putting on a larger, like all around bigger, better meetup event. So they probably have them around here too in LA, but think of it like this market where you've got Los Angeles meetups that go on in Orange County and San Diego. It's much like that in New Orleans where there's kind of a lot of little suburbs and they all have their events and meetups. But this event that we put on is the space for them to all come together. So We have a much bigger venue where we can have hundreds of people come instead of just 50 or 60, and so it's just this opportunity for networking. We'll usually bring in speakers. So we flew in a couple speakers from the West Coast actually
Really?
last time. Yeah. And this time we have a couple actually of speakers coming in from Arizona. So
Who's going to be speaking?
we have Kara Beckman, which I know is your friend, has been on the podcast.
Love Kara. Shout out to Kara.
Yeah, shout out to Kara. And then we have NFL player Devon Kennard, who's actually got a big investment portfolio as well. And he's coming to share a little bit about that and his just transition from sports and pro athlete to investor. So
I love that. And so is this more of a meetup style, or is it like a more of a conference style to where you're going to have everything kind of more structured?
So it is a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's networking, then a more structured interview segment with the speakers, and then more networking time. And we're actually doing like a VIP lunch and everything afterwards as well. So a little bit of both.
Yeah. I love that. I've never hosted my own live event, but I've like spoken at other ones, and it's fun to go to these events as a guest.
Totally.
And just to network and, be inspired by hearing other folks. And I always walk away from these events like so inspired and like motivated to like, go try something new or go take my adventure or venture to like the next level. Yeah.
And especially when it's local. I mean, you never know who you're going to meet. It might be someone you do your next deal with or becomes part of your team, or, I mean, you just never know. So yeah, there's so much benefit that comes from networking locally.
Yeah, we've been hosting our meetup here for almost 5 years now.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest ongoing monthly meetup in San Diego.
Yeah.
And that one, I don't have speakers. We just like, it's super just networking. People come and go, but there's no like pitching or speakers. And I do that intentionally just because I think a lot of the meetups out here, at least in San Diego, are very formal.
Sure.
And there's not a lot of time to network. And so we're just like, hey, come out, let's have a good time.
Yeah.
It's free. And let's just network and have a good time. But it's been great. Like over the years, I've seen a lot of folks meet at our meetup and partner on deals. I've partnered with folks on deals that I've met here at the meetup. And so it's cool to kind of build that community and see people flourish and meet each other within your network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, anyways, Dominique, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's definitely inspiring to see everything that you're doing at only 25 years old. And I'm excited to keep following you along your journey and see where you go next.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.